Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another season of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Bromley, and we are back with the first of our pre-season specials. I'm joined this week by regular panellists Steele and George Poole, and we're looking at all things transfer as we try and avoid the never-ending cycle of Twitter rumours and reposting of rumours and reposting of journalist articles. Who exactly are the Claret signing? Who are we in the market for? And who is on their way out of Turf Moor? You know the drill by now, listeners. Welcome back to another season. Let's go. Rich, good evening.
Good evening, Natalie. Good evening, listeners. Good evening, George. I hope we're all well. Been enjoying pre-season and looking forward to the season starting. You get excited now, don't you?
Yeah, we are.
I'm looking forward to it.
I know. I do. I love Rich's intros. I get excited for him. He's so polite and lovely. George, welcome back to the show. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. You have to excuse me having to press unmute like that. Got quite a different setup going on tonight, but it's all part of the fun here at No Nay Never. So yeah, good to be here. Yeah,
it's part of the charm. It's the chaos. We're in season 13 now of the No Nay Never podcast. George, you don't have to go on mute, darling. We're all right. You can keep on. I don't want to see our visitors doing this all the way through it. Yeah, season 13 of the No Nay Never podcast. Still the same chaos that we've always had. Same team. Slight tweaks maybe in terms of layout, but the same old nonsense, and we absolutely love it. George, our listeners will not be disappointed to know that for season 13, the moustache has come back. When are we getting rid of this?
Season 33, so the 20th anniversary.
I've never seen anyone who's not Italian look more Italian than George.
I think a bit more
crazy. It definitely is. That was quite a nice link, actually, Rich. Speaking of Italy, we are recording this podcast on the evening of the 23rd of July, just before Spain take on Germany in the Women's Euros semi-final, after an exhilarating night in the Women's Euros as England beat Italy to get through to their third consecutive major final. Rich, you've been enjoying just to jump very briefly into this, you've been really enjoying the Women's Euros.
Yeah, I've fully been enjoying it. I love the competitiveness of it. I love the intensity of the games. I feel as well like we've been able to watch a tournament and the referees and the officials haven't been, unless I'm wrong on this, I've not watched every single game, don't seem to be a talking point like in the men's game where it constantly... I thought that was a great decision yesterday by the referee to give the penalty. And
the old one.
Yeah, it was sort of penalty, wasn't it?
It was a penalty.
Yeah,
I've been arguing all day about this because I've had people coming to me saying that Mead dived, that it wasn't a penalty, and I'm just like, I am dying on this. It's a penalty.
I think, listen, there's certain contacts in the box where players are looking for, but I didn't say it out loud. I was watching the game on my own, but I thought to it as soon as it happens, that's a penalty. And I think you watch England and they're not that fluent at the moment. The patterns of play aren't quite there. But, what I do like about this...
I think rather than fluent.
Yeah, and I think what I do like about this England team, and I think England football in general, there's a little bit more resilience to English football now. I think St George's Park, if anybody's not been there, I'd say, I've been a couple of times with myself, quite fortunate. It's with work, and it's a really impressive facility. And I think we're really now starting to see the fruits of its labour, but still think we're a little bit in both men and women's football, still a little bit behind Spain. So I think the standard of the coaching from grassroots.
A little bit.
Well, we are. We can compete in other ways.
The whole world is. Yeah, the whole world is.
Yeah, so, and I think it goes back to, with women's football, and every time we have a tournament and more men in particular, including myself, I've got to be honest, tune in. I wouldn't say we're surprised by the standard of women's football, but everyone's like, bloody hell, it's actually all right, this. And I think there's times when people watch clips on Twitter and different things like that where the standard, I don't like to say isn't as high, but I think like if you did clips of like Premier League and for people making mistakes, it happens all the time. And I think, I don't like to use the word men, but like there are certain pockets of men who still have misogynistic views towards women football or misogynistic views towards women who comment on football. I have absolutely no doubt on numerous occasions this season. Natalie and Charlotte will get misogynistic comments from men.
Every day.
Ultimately, it's one of them. You got to keep fighting it, but at the same time, you've got to not listen to those people in a way, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not a woman, so I can't comment on that. But yeah,
sometimes you have to just ignore it. Sometimes you're not given the space.
Genuinely, I've just loved the intensity of it. I think the intensity has been really, really good, and the competitiveness, and
and an increased physicality, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and athleticism into the women's game.
The pace of the game has improved, and I think that was the big thing where people would compare, even though it was stupid, people would compare men and women.
Yeah.
And physiologically, anyone who's got half a brain cell, women cannot physiologically compete with men.
No, so of course not. We're not trying to.
Exactly.
You're just trying to exist in a different space, and it's absolutely fine.
Exactly. Yeah. This is, and obviously my background as a PE teacher, we teach boys and girls, and girls are better at certain aspects of sport, men are better than other aspects. So it's pointless comparing the two. I just think it's been fantastic to watch, and I think hopefully more and more people just respect respect women's football, and have more respect for women commentating doing podcasts, on football and on sport itself. And I'm obviously, when this podcast finished, probably catch the second half of the Spain-Germany game, and I'll really look forward to the final on this weekend. Definitely.
Well, thank you for that, Rich. I wasn't necessarily expecting that, but that was a great intro. It's almost like I lined that up and I didn't. I wasn't expecting that. I think as a long-time fan of women's football, and regular listeners know that I've been an advocate for this. I do follow Burnley women. I followed the Lionesses for a long time as well. I think the difference this year is, I've really noticed it since the last Euros, is that the improved quality across Europe has really, really increased. A lot of there's lots of different what's the word I'm looking for? My brain's gone for a split second. There's lots of different teams across Europe that are competing that wouldn't necessarily have done before, and they've all got much more increased physicality. I think one of the criticisms of the Italian side last night, one of the reasons why it meant so much to them at the end when they didn't get through to the final, is that they're one of the countries that are really struggling from a lack of investment, and they just, particularly at club level, and even today there's reports of very little being put in the press, even that to acknowledge the game had happened. So that's a real disappointment. George, just to deal with this very, very quickly, you and I have spoken a lot about the women's game following our roles on the FAB with Burnley's plans next season in terms of professional outfit at Burnley, making the team fully professional, plans eventually to play other games at Turf Moor. And it's starting to creep in at the tier 3 level, isn't it? Like, look at Burnley and the seasons that we're in, and what we hear in our fan advisory board meetings about the challenges of getting out of that league because it's so competitive, and that's tier 3.
Yeah, definitely. I think the past 2 seasons we've been really unlucky, haven't we? Because there've been 2 big teams who basically trumped us to the title, and before only one of those teams who wins either the North or South eventually goes up. Whereas I think I was reading this year that it should be a bit more likely, because both the North and South both get promoted. I don't know if I quite got that right. I'm pretty sure I have.
Yeah, correct.
So
yeah, just
that'd be good,
because the leagues.
To be honest, to be fair as well, with the investment to going professional, it's about time they get promoted, and it's only once you get that promotion to the second tier that you can really build any momentum behind the project. So hopefully, this season's the one, and they can get up to that second division, because there's certainly the investment and the desire to sort of push it from the ownership, which is good. And yeah, I think I'm not sure on the specifics, but they'll certainly be playing some games in the closer local area this season rather than Leyland, which will be good.
Yeah, well, there are some plans at the moment. A lot of this does depend on what season. I mean, we had hoped to be in the Championship this season, but I think this is the right decision when Reading and our neighbours down the road decided to take voluntary relegation into our league. What they did instead was the 2 relegated sides, they kept their places, and obviously on balance, that's the fair thing to do. So we'll see what we are. Anyway, let's move on. We digress and into women's football, which is right. We're in the middle of the Women's Euros. We had a little bit of a discussion there. Let's move on to all things Burnley. And we're going to start this podcast predominantly looking at the transfers that Burnley have done so far. Let's start very quickly with just a recap of those players that have left us so far. So obviously we know Masengo's gone, Costello's gone, Seawood and Riley, which is probably the biggest shock of the summer. We were expecting him to stay on and have a Premier League season with Steve at the back. He's joined Marseille. Untouch is gone. Brownhill has been released and is currently without club. Nathan Redmond the same. John Joe Shelby, that was obviously always going to happen. So there's some exits out of there. And I don't think, maybe apart from CJ Rich, I don't really think any of those came as a huge surprise or a particularly... Well, let's leave Brownhill aside for a minute because we'll talk about Brownhill towards the end of the episode. But those aside, not really anything particularly of concern there with the outgoing players.
Yeah, obviously when we did the last recording on the back of the last game of the season, I think it was, from what Matt Williams was saying, it seemed like CJ, it was more leaning towards him staying. But yeah, it's a great move for him to go to Marseille. I think, or maybe this is my opinion. I think maybe because of the French league and the way it's gone recently, I think you forget how big of a club Marseille are. You could say arguably the biggest club in France. Well, probably behind PSG now, but historically, I think I'm right in this, and they've won the Champions League, Marseille back in the day, maybe the 90s. So yeah, great move for him, and I think his style of play will suit playing abroad, and there's no point in saying it. I would have really liked to have seen him given a go in the Premier League next to Esteve. There was some question marks, but I think he's good enough to make the step up. Good luck to him. I know you said not mention Brown, but I think we have to mention him. I just find the whole situation really unusual. He's obviously not staying now, but like for it to be so close to the start of the season, where there was talks of him going to the Championship, which I don't see, but we're 2.5 weeks away from a week and a half away from the EFL. We're less than a month away from the start of the Prem, and he's not got a club, which indicates to me, he spent time in America. I can see that pathway for him. Again, I would have liked Brownhill to stay, but at his age, and I think we've seen him enough in the Premier League, would I be willing to break the bank for him? No. But ultimately, with Brownhill going, we are short in that midfield position. Good luck to him in particular. It's a good move for him.
No, I completely agree. And like I said, let's park Brownhill for now because I want to speak about him and talk about Trafford later on in the thing, because I think that comes to talking about if obviously Brownhill isn't going to stay with us, and which you're right, I don't think he's going to do Rich. I think that's perfectly fine. Then it does leave us a hole in midfield. So let's think about that later on. But I agree with you. That does seem, him and CJ seem to be the ones. So far, Burnley have brought in 6 players so far. I'm going to leave the incoming keeper Weiss to the end, just because we can talk about him with Trafford. Let's start, I think, with the headline one, George, the one that none of us saw coming and the one of us none of us expect, and that was, of course, the signing of Kyle Walker from City to Burnley. This to me is an insane piece of business, and one that I'm super excited about. What was your reaction, I think, when he came through the door, and what do you think he can bring in terms of A, experience, and B, technical delivery?
Sometimes things fall into place, don't they? And it sounds like that's been the case here with his son playing in the academy, wants to stay local, needs to push for a place in that England squad next summer, so probably needs to be in the I guess the national picture, playing in the Premier League week in, week out. So seems like a move that suits him, even though on paper when it broke, I remember on that Friday evening when it broke, I was just coming out of the first Oasis concert, and I see that on my phone, Kyle Walker, and I think I've been taken to another dimension. I'm like, what's going on here then? Who's pulling my leg here? So anyway, the next day, on the Saturday, obviously it all came together and he was announced, which I think is another a good point of our window, is that we seem to be making signings under the radar and have them announced before agents get hold of the talk. But yeah, actually, in terms of the transfer itself, it seems like it can only be, there he is, there's our Kyle. sporting a lovely burgundy kit there. So fantastic, really, to see him sign. And thank you. It goes without saying, doesn't it, that he's probably the most decorated player to ever play for Burnley. Even though maybe there's some of the negative comments are that he's quote unquote legs have gone. I think it's a lot different saying that for a defender who's playing right back for Manchester City who are trying to win the Champions League, and a guy who's probably going to come in and play centre back in the back three for us by the sort of the waves that are coming out. But even if he played right back for us, it's not like he's going to have to bomb up and down that wing, because
No,
let's be honest, we're going to be sitting back. So for the few times
that's
a game
how
where
Brownhill is.
so for the few times a game where we do get forward, he'll still have the legs for that. So I just think in terms of the experience he has, the lightning speed he still has, he's not slow. I think it's a perfect partner next to Esteve, who isn't the quickest defender. I think Egan Riley, one of his main weaknesses was that he was slow, and I think that could get exposed at Premier League level. But with Walker, that won't be an issue, and it can only be a positive. I think it sounds like a real coup.
Yeah. Rich, from your perspective, and George just touched on that there, what are we expecting here? Are we expecting Walker to come in at right back? I know Connor Roberts has had some good seasons in the Premier League, some difficult seasons in the Premier League, or do we expect that we may be going to a three at the back, particularly with Hartman coming in, a very attacking left back who we'll come on to in a minute? Do we think we are moving here to a five at the back system? What's your view on this?
Obviously, there's a lot of noise on Twitter, but is that just the noise around, or is that just because we've signed a few defenders and people are surmising? I'm not against five at the back. You do worry about having that two in midfield.
Yeah.
Which we, but I suppose if you have I think if we have a back five, it'll be a back five for a lot of the time.
It's not going into their half.
Yeah, listen, I think we'll have we got a few friendlies coming up now, which are not behind closed doors. So I think we'll have a better idea. I think they'll be trying different formations. I actually would be surprised if we went away from the formation we had last season. I think, unfortunately, Connor's going to have to see himself on the bench initially. That's what I
think he'll go four at the back and play Walker at right back.
If I was to say at the moment, I would still say we'll play a four and Walker will be right back, unless Walker plays. I can't say Walker playing centre half in a two, but you never know. I think as it stands at this moment in time, if he's fit, I think Tuanzebe plays that right centre back and Walker right back, Esteve and Hartman, and it, we've got a good amount of like pace, aggression, and physicality with that back four.
I like that back four.
Yeah, it's good. Obviously we'll come to it. There's still areas of the squad that need addressing. There's big holes in the squad, but as it stands, with a few, I think 3.5 weeks ago to the start of the season, I think we're in an okay place, but there is glaring holes. Like George said, I'm quite glad the way we've gone around that. With our business, it's been quite measured this time. So I think it's important now on this podcast we analyse with the teams. We've been talking about this quite a lot in our group. I like the way we're going about it. We're clearly getting a decent bit of experience in, mixed with some youth. We've not spent loads of money so far.
No,
but something I mentioned was I think a big part of the rest of our transfer business depends on James Trafford, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So that's a nice link for you into the next bit.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
No, I thought we were going to
hold Rich back. He's desperate. He's desperate to talk about them. We'll get there, Rich. I promise you. But yes, you are absolutely right. All transfer budgets are all hanging on what we get for James Trafford. George, let's move in then, because he's already mentioned him as Rich, and that potential back four, if we stick with the four at the back, is really exciting. And on the assumption that Hartman, I'm really nervous about pronouncing some of these. Regular listeners know what my pronunciation is like. 23-year-old Hartman is coming from Feyenoord. 9 million euros is apparently the fee that we've paid for him. He's a real attacking threat, and I've even seen one person on Twitter who's declared him that he is better than Ian Maatsen in that position, which is quite some statement, knowing how much Burnley fans like Ian Maatsen. Now, George, one of the things that we have been warned about Hartman is that he is injury prone. He's just on his ACL and he spent a lot of last season coming back into it. So apparently we need to be patient with him. So bearing that in mind, where do we stand with Humphreys versus Hartman to start in that left back position?
I think it'll be Hartman still, to be honest. He's coming back from an ACL, but that doesn't mean he's injury prone. You know, it's just one big injury, isn't it? And I think he got back into the final team towards the back end of last season. So you'd presume with a full pre-season under his belt, he'd be ready to go. I think the reason I've said the 5 at the back thing is I think a lot of people have, to be fair to them, done some good snooping on the clips that have been coming out of Burnley social media in the sort of pre-season little games that have been going on, and also the training games where it does very much seem like they're set up in a 5 at the back. And if that was the case, Hartman left wing back. And to be honest, I think Humphreys can definitely make the step up to be a starting centre half or left back at Premier League level. So even and I don't really believe in this thinking that you can't play 2 left-footed centre halves together. So I'm not even against Estev and Humphreys starting alongside each other. This Tuanzebe, I think, will do a job, but I'm still wary on that defence. I think, as we've said amongst us in our group, I think the starting slots are very much up for grabs in pre-season. I really don't see any standout. Obviously, Kyle Walker plays.
Steve, surely he's in there.
Yes, I meant the new guys. Kyle Walker starts no matter what. Obviously, Estev will start no matter what. But the other lot, it's all much for muchness to me. It depends on someone stepping up in pre-season. A bit like Egan Riley, he took his chance last season when he came in. So for me, it's one of those things where we won't be able to nail it down yet. And I guess we'll see come the start of the season who's starting there, and we can go from there. I'm not enthused by the defence, particularly just because I know how difficult it is at the Premier League. For all that we broke all those records last season, it doesn't make a mighty Premier League defence, does it?
What records do we think will break defensively this season? Maybe one for another podcast. Let's not worry about that. Let's just have a very quick overview then of Tuanzebe. And again, apologies for the pronunciation.
That's perfect.
Thanks, George. Look at that. I love this. Rich, coming in on a free transfer, currently suing Manchester United, which is a hilarious headline.
Hey, he might be making money for us.
And you never know. Obviously, he spent quite a lot of time at Villa. He spent quite a lot of time at United. United youth rank. Comes with a lot of Premier League experience, but he's come to us on a free transfer from Ipswich last season. 27 years of age. Do you share George's view that maybe he can do a job, but it's possibly not in the...
I think if he stays fit, from what I've heard from Ipswich fans, if he can stay fit, I think he's Premier League quality.
Yeah.
He said he was their best defender, and he is, in that one-on-one duels and different things like that. He's very, very good. He obviously had a bad injury cutting his finger washing, doing his washing, his laundry on the washing machine or something. So maybe we can hire Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to do his housework. So
it's good when football is relatable, isn't it?
That's your go-to reference in 2025.
That was a great programme, wasn't it?
It was back in the 90s.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Well,
I think we're definitely date stamping a lot of our listener base here.
I'm on board. I think it's a fantastic show as well, Rich, and I got there.
That's a good show. But anyway, if you don't know who Jeffrey is from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, let me know.
We'll do a pod on it.
But I do agree with George. I think Hartman will start, actually. Yeah. I'd be very surprised. I'm not seeing Humphreys in anything to a pre-season, so I don't know if he's actually fit.
He's on his way back, isn't he? Because he had that injury, didn't he, at the end of the season?
Yeah, of course. So I think to the question marks on Bayer, but I think that's why I just think he'll be about. I think if it's a back, I think if we do go back 5, I think Robert starts then, which is fine. So and I know we're still to talk to maybe a centre half coming in. So we'll have to see on that one. But I think George has covered the defence pretty well, really.
So any of our existing players, not just the new guys who are going to stake a claim here. I mean, obviously we've got Ekdal.
Delcroix.
Well, we're not putting Delcroix in there. We've got.
Listen, I think obviously
Sambo's still in.
No, I think like Delqua, Sambo. I'm not saying they'll go, but they won't. I think they'll go, aren't they? Really.
What about is it Son or Sonny? Is he?
Son, I think, will be around it. I think they like him, but is he going to be ready to make that step up? I think a lot of people's harshly judged him on that Preston away performance, which he wasn't good, but nobody was good in that game.
Perez at right back.
Yeah,
the wizard.
But obviously, like, I like Ekdal, but is he good enough for the Prem? I don't know. And obviously, like, it's great to see Bayer's back playing, but again, I don't think he'll be ready for that.
No.
For the first part of the season. So
September.
I think Tuanzebe, if he's fit, I think Tuanzebe starts. He
starts on the right side of centre half.
Well, I think he starts anyway. I think if you play a back five or a four, I think he's either your middle centre half or your right centre half, depending on what you're doing. I think so. I think the back four will be Hartman, Esteve, Tuanzebe, and Walker. Or if we do the five, I think it'll be Hartman, Esteve, Tuanzebe, Walker, Roberts.
Stick Roberts on at the end.
I agree.
See, I really am not averse to it. It feels negative, and I know we've been calling for Parker to take the handbrake off a little bit, but that back five to me, I'm keen to start.
But I don't see the point in playing it when we're so good defend and that shape was so good last season. I know the Premier League's a different animal, but like we absolutely nailed the shape and the structure. We will be competitive this year. I'm not saying we'll stay up, and I'm not. The quality is going to be at the other end. I'm not worried about us defensively because your defense isn't just a defensive. It's the defense. It's your midfield. It's your attackers, and how everybody works together. So I'm just a little bit. I'm not against it, but I'm almost like, well, we did so well last season. I'm not. People can bookmark this, but I don't think we'll get battered a lot next season.
No, I don't.
So I don't see the reason at this moment in time to completely go away from that back four. And, we're talking about Roberts and, we want him to do well because we like him. I think with Walker and maybe Tuanzebe's fitness, I think he's going to play quite a lot of games this season anyway. So if it was me, and I'm not, if it was purely me picking the team, I'd still pick a back four and then that kind of like that 4-2-3-1 if you like formation or however you want to.
No, I don't mind that.
I would as well.
George, you're nodding your head there.
Because to be honest, you can maybe pull me up on something in the 80s and 90s. There's never ever been a successful Burnley side in its history who've played a five at the back.
There's not many successful sides, George.
No, I've never seen it even happen. We've never done it. Tarkowski sometimes dropped into a 70th minute, in the Championship winning season, but I've never seen it done.
We've not mentioned Worrell, have we? Who I think will be a squad player again.
Do you know what? More so than Ekdal, I think.
Yeah, I think Ekdal will go, to be honest. I think once... Yeah. Listen, we're still only in July, aren't we? The dominoes will start falling again. Like we said, I think Trafford will be a big part of that.
Yeah, that'll do it. Do you think, I know, and I completely agree with you what you're saying in terms of having, and I think this is something that we struggled with in the lessons that we learned from the Kamikaze Company Premier League season, in that everything that was successful got thrown out the window, the players, the structure, the shape, everything just for some, and we started again and it was a disastrous season. And obviously we're advocates for having some consistency of a squad and a playing style here, and that's going to work for us. Just for one last point on this, and George, I'll throw this over to you. Is there an argument then maybe to use that potential back five when we are away at the really big sides? And then, that when we're away at the sides where we want to be competitive and we want to try and get some points on the road, and certainly at home, we stick with that four at the back shape, but we maybe use the five when we're away at Spurs or Newcastle or City or Arsenal or wherever, just to try and keep some kind of control on the game and not let it get absolutely battered. Is there a justification for that, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, remember we flicked between 4-4-2 and 4-5-1 when away in the season we qualified for Europe, and it was very successful. But I think also to your point there, I remember there was also a spell when things weren't going well with Dice that he started going to sort of change into a five at the back, and it never stuck. It never worked. So I guess it depends. It honestly, with a system like that, it depends how much they've worked on it in pre-season, because it's like to Rich's point, the whole way the team moved last season on the pitch dictated how well the defence was. So it's all well and good sticking 5, brick walls, on your 18-yard line, but if it's rubbish in front, you're going to invite so much pressure that the other team's going to score anyway, because there's always going to be chances. So. Look, I'm sure the club have thought about this, but yeah, I think for me, if I was the manager at the start of the season, I'd be going with the same shape as last season.
Excellent. Right, let's move into midfield. Because
do we have to? It's awful. God.
Yes,
Let's just the forward line. Let's just cut.
Right, all right. Well, I'll go to Rich then, George. That wasn't what I was expecting.
Well, should we not do the goalie first? We've done the defence.
Yeah, if you want, yeah. Well, I was going to do Trafford and Brownhill later on.
That's the biggest elephant in the room for everything for me.
Yeah.
Is, as it stands, we've got that young German lad in net.
Well, we're obviously not going to do. Obviously, we.
No, I know. I'm saying as of recording now, like we need to get this sorted one way or another.
Yeah.
I still think there's
not a week before we start.
No, yeah, exactly. We need to get it sorted by the end by this time next week. At the latest. I still think we probably have a goalie lined up. I don't think we'll get that Ortega. I just don't think that'll happen for some reason. I wouldn't mind like Sam Johnson for a year for a year in the Premier. Would do a solid, dependable job. There's a small part of me that wouldn't be surprised if Trafford was playing that game against Tottenham. Because we've got our price tag of 40 million, and fair play to the club. They're like, well, if you don't, it's clear now that if you don't pay this or meet us somewhere close to this, or you're not having him. Where Newcastle seem to be 30, worth 40. At the start of the week, I was like, right, looks like he's going to City. It looked like Edison was going the other way, which would have been a big move for him. But now all of a sudden it seems like that's cooled. But I suppose that this is the Twitter. It's all up and down. I still think we have a new goalie by that Spurs game, but it's I think we all said that last season, didn't we? And Trafford ended up staying. When he missed that game
this season. Yeah, it's in the news cycle at the moment, Rich, because of the teams that are coming in to do it. And just to recap on this, obviously, we've had 18 months now of rumours of Trafford going to Newcastle, and I think that's where he wanted to go.
I don't think he goes to Newcastle now.
I don't think well, no, they're now saying that's now
doesn't go.
Yeah, so. the latest update on this is that's now cooled down, and Manchester City are now firmly back in the picture to be able to re-sign him again. And apparently they're triggering. There's a clause, a 40 million buyback clause in there, which obviously gets the club up to where they want it to be in terms of evaluation, and it still gets Trafford a pretty high-profile Premier League move. He goes back to his parent club where he grew up, and he stays in the Northwest as well. So it doesn't surprise me, Rich, that Trafford has moved his allegiance from Newcastle to City. So yes, we all know that Trafford. I think he's gone, and I'm preparing for that. And the news coming out to the club is that they have a plan B in place. So I guess my question on that basis to you, and then we'll flip over to George as well, is that if we do get the reported 40 million for Trafford, or at least 36, 35 for him, how much of that do you spend on a keeper, and how much do you release on clearly a midfield or a striker, which is what we're looking for?
Yeah, I don't think the budget is literally like you've got to have 35 million to spend and all three. Obviously, there's more money in the coffers from the Premier League, but I think it
does affect our signings, though, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And this is why I think at the moment we're in this limbo of, well, do we go and spend 25 million on this striker, or do we only have 15 million to spend because we don't know if he's going or not? So I don't think it's like, I don't know you didn't mean that we're like 35 has to go on them 3 positions, but I think it
affects the way we approach certain.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're in this position now where we've done a lot of our business kind of on the cheap, if you will, and we've done well. But now it's like the goalie, if Trafford goes, but the 2 glaring gaps are that midfielder next to Cullen and for me the centre forward. I think central midfielder in particular. Yeah. And at the moment we're in that rocking and hard place position where we don't know what our budget is to really go maybe all in on our possibly number one targets. So
no, you're absolutely right. George, from your perspective, which one of those areas needs the most? If you could only, let's play devil's advocate here. If you could only assign a really big budget, one massive money signing to either central midfield or a striker, which one do you go for?
Well, this is the issue. They're both catastrophic. Like, they are both catastrophic. If you don't get either of them right,
Why did I send this question to George?
No. But if you don't get both of them, like, I think you're down anyway. What maybe is a good point to this, I've just thought of it, is 2 years ago we got a fantastic midfielder in Sander Berge, top 10 quality midfielder, fantastic signing. That was your sort of marquee signing for the summer, and we still went down because no matter how good that little midfield is. If you don't get the balls in the net, right at the top of the pitch, you're gonna go down anyway. So I think
the other end won it under company. That was the issue.
Say that again.
It was the other end under. It wasn't.
Defensively,
I think to answer that, like George said, they're so critical.
Yeah,
but I do think with the squad we've got, we can patch up midfield a little bit. Let's say devil's advocate, we don't sign anyone. I think you can drop Hannibal back in the Prem and maybe put like Bruun Larson in there. You've got Ramsey coming back from injury.
We've got pretty rich on the wing, which we'll come on to in a second.
Centre forward, we're going into the season with Fleming, who, in my opinion, is a good championship striker. Foster, who he's got summer, but he's not. He's just not. Unfortunately, we've seen enough of Foster now, and I've tried to back him because, again, you want to back your players and not be personal against people. And I think he's a good guy. He's not got a footballing brain, and he can't put it all together. And Barnes is obviously just going to be a squad player, innit? So to me, if I could only pick one, I would pick a striker because of that reason. But like George said, we need both. But I do think I'm not panicking yet. I think obviously once this Trafford domino goes down for us, I think then we will address those positions. So,
but I think the issue is Rich. Yeah. The issue is, obviously, you said earlier, Rich, we need to get this Trafford deal done by the end of the week. Obviously, every other club who's coming in to bid for him knows that would be the ideal. So they're bidding low bids, and we're saying obviously no. But that's why they're coming in for low bids, because they know they've got all of August to do this, and that's why I think he'll be in nets for that Tottenham game, because we won't have sorted it by then, and it means every other domino that will need to fall afterwards won't have been sorted by then. So a bit like last summer, where you're going into, remember that Sunderland game where it was just all chaos before, and you're writing off 3 or 4 games at the start of the season, and I think just by nature of how the window works, I think that's exactly what will happen again this summer.
But I think it'll happen to a lot of clubs. I think it unfortunately happens to a lot, and there won't be one club up and down. You'd be very surprised, unless you're the real big boys,
Liverpool,
possibly, and God bless Jota. I think Jesus, bloody hell, but like. There'll be clubs going into that first game of the season thinking we're short here, we're short there. But coming into the football side of it, we will be competitive.
Yeah.
I genuinely think going away to Tottenham, Tottenham won't be that good. And, I think Frank's a good manager, but there's a lot of work to do there. They've signed Kudus, who's obviously a good player, but like, I'm not saying a winner will get a point, but I think we'll be competitive.
I think we'll get a point.
Well, we can do, but like, if this is so, this is where we just need to be able to play against and just hope that we can pick up enough wins and just defend like we did under Dyche and make Turf Moor a fortress. I think we've got to.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, both of you then. We know that you don't need 40 points anymore to survive. I'm jumping around the script a little bit, so we'll come on to this in a second. Bearing in mind that you don't need 40 points anymore to survive, probably 35, 36, it's still wildly considered that you need to hit the 10 wins in a season. Can Burnley, George, you first, can Burnley, under Scott Parker, find 10 wins in a season to stay up? Or will his tendency to not lose games as opposed to go and try and win them maybe hamper that? Because will we draw too many games rather than winning them?
No, I think we can definitely win 10 games. And I think, it's all going to rely on how well we can, if we can get a good striker in, slash how well the wingers can start firing and contributing. I think we've seen Bruun Larson, who we've not even mentioned, fantastic signing. Fantastic.
Yeah, we're coming on into it. Yeah, we'll come on to
yeah,
it.
Well, yeah, he's going to be able to chip in. I know he's going to be able to chip in with goals. So I think there'll be enough games, even though obviously maybe your question's pointed in the way of saying sometimes it's too defensive. We'll just keep it. It's the old dice, motto. As long as it's 0-0, you can always find a winner. So I back us to be competitive, and if we're competitive to the point of nearing survival, I think we might have enough about us to do that.
Well, that's what we did last year under Parker, wasn't it? It was, if you look at that last 10 games in the run-in, when suddenly there was a window open for us to actually get automatic promotion, when we were all absolutely resigned to the playoffs. He just did it right at the last minute. He just gambled right at the end, and we suddenly started pushing. It was around the Swansea game for me that we started to suddenly look like we were pushing for those wins. Rich, find me off some games. If we're going to try and win 10 games next season, who do we beat?
City away, Liverpool away. No, I mean, like this. Obviously, I think the issue is the standard of the Premier League's got so much better. I think the situation.
This is my concern.
I think the situation at Brentford's good for us. Fingers crossed. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Sunderland at the moment. I've got a lot of respect for Sunderland. They're having a really good go, and they needed to have a good go. I think the 3 promoted teams will be a lot better, because I don't just think it's about, yes, it is about the quality of the last 2 seasons, don't get me wrong, but I think it's about how those teams have played too. And I think, they've played, Ipswich, Oars, for example, I played really open and expansive football. Even Leicester did when Van Nistelrooy come in. Southampton, if Leicester stuck with Cooper, they'd have got a lot closer. And then, would have Wolves got more points, so they can play with that little bit more freedom? I think, like both, Wolves have lost Tchaouna, who's it's all well and good getting the money in, but when you lose your real talisman, it's always a massive loss at the Premier League level. So I think we've got a chance. It's going to be hard for us. I think Sunderland have obviously, like I said, they've had a good go. It'll be interesting how Sunderland start. And I think that Sunderland game that we have at Turf Moor, obviously we're going to have probably maybe 4 new additions in the starting lineup, where they're going to have pretty much a brand new team. It's going to be really interesting to watch that game to see the dynamic.
That's the mistake we made though, Rich, under the
exactly.
years.
I'm happy with
I'm really happy.
Exactly. As long as we're competitive. So listen, obviously those teams, when you look at any home game maybe against your real elite clubs, I think we can be competitive in.
Yeah. And
that's all you can say. Let's be competitive. Let's give it a go. Let's as our old kind of, he seems like he's the the old guru, as he said, legs, listen to the fantastic, Be-All End, a fantastic podcast with Dyche, let's be competitive. Let's put blood on the shirt. Blood, sweat and tears on the shirt. Let's go off Turf Moor knowing that teams, we don't want Arne Slot and Pep and all these lads saying, oh, you know what, fair play to Burnley, they tried doing it the right way and all that nonsense.
Oh, none of that.
Not interested. I want them to hate us.
Opposition manager, fans, players to be whinging on Twitter after the game, whether we win, lose or draw, and we know we've given it a good shot. And like George said, Bruun Larson, he's not going to be a world beater, but we can play in the Premier League level. And to me, if he replaces Brownhill in that number 10, which I think he will do, I think that's a really good signing. I think Hannibal might play number 10 in some games as well, who I'm excited to see. I thought he was fantastic in that run-in. I think when we raised our game, I think he was a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited to see Edwards with a pre-season under his belt. So I think there's a lot of positive signings that we've made.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's just the goalie, the central midfield and the strike is just that key position. And we're going under the radar this time. There was a lot of fanfare about Company last time. You had overexcited people saying we're going to come top half and all this stuff. Where this time everyone's predicted us to go down. So
George.
I think when Burnley are underdogs is when we're always our most dangerous.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think that's a really valid point. And obviously, bringing Larson back in, he was one of my favourite players under that company. I ended up being our top goal scorer with 7 goals in that 24 season. 4 million, George. This feels like a steal to me. And he really, really wanted to come back to us, which is really good. So we've now suddenly got him offering, and he's already keen to add more goals into that as well. On top of that, we've also added Tchaouna as well. He's under 21 winger. He's obviously much smaller, but he's coming at 13 million. Despite his age, 5-year deal, George. I'm expecting him to play a part here. I don't think he's coming in to make up numbers.
I want to think positively on this. So I think he's going to be someone that's going to be a real one of those rough diamonds that comes into the Prem and plays with that. I don't want to say that it's almost like an innate ability. I remember when we first went up. When we first started playing Wilson Audibert and Coley Oshaw, both these guys are sort of those rough diamonds that come in and they just attack. They attack the Premier League and they go with a sort of a freedom, and I think that's the kind of player we've got in Tchaouna. So I really do think he's that kind of player who's got a bit of pace about him. He's got that bit of trickery. There's a player there, and it might not have been unearthed properly at Lazio, but that's not to say it won't be. With us, he's only 21. They clearly believe a lot in his abilities, and how much data goes into these signings these days. So the fact they've spent 13, 14, 15 million on him, giving him 5-year contract. I think there's a real player there. And on Edwards, like you said, Rich, really excited to see him after a pre-season because he was fantastic just coming in January. And I think with a lot of these players, the way they start a season can dictate how the rest of it goes. And if you think you're Edwards and your first game of the season is going to be back at Tottenham, where you broke through but didn't quite make it, what a motivation to sort of get the season off to a flyer. So I think we've got very good options on the wing. Back to your earlier point, Natty, I think there's definitely catchable teams we haven't really touched on, but the mess at Brentford, like Rich mentioned. And also, Rich, I thought that was a brilliant point about Wolves. Last season, all those teams right in the bottom 3 were gone from the minute the season started. And it meant every team above them could just play with freedom. They weren't tested. They weren't tested. This season, your Wolves, you've lost your talisman, and you're actually, because as we think the team's going to be competitive, you're going to have pressure, and will they crack under that? Who knows? But at least it'll be a test for them.
Yeah, completely agree. Right, I'm gonna finish that off there. I think what we'll do is we'll save the forward. I'm just conscious of the timing of the pod. I think we'll save the forward position and some wider discussions about formation in an attacking threat for our next pre-season special. We might have a clearer idea then of what our budget is and some other ones. Just very quickly, Rich, just to sign off on that. There's quite a lot of persistent rumours, particularly around social media, on Burnley going in for Callum Wilson and also Josh Sargent as well from Norwich. You not that different kind of player, but you're not entirely convinced that Sargent's a better player than Fleming. Certainly
he is a better player than Fleming, I would say, but it's the price you're willing to pay. Like if you could get Sargent for like 12 to 15 million, then yeah. But when it's like 20 plus, then it's how you market that player. And I think there's no point. This is the problem with company. And, he did sign some great players for us, don't get me wrong, but he also signed a lot of players who weren't necessarily better than what we had, or, and it disrupted the balance. So you've got to be sure if you spend, and 20 million is still a decent amount of money for Burnley, but to me, with that striker, it's a really difficult one. I think Wilson, the problem with Wilson is he can't stay fit. Mm-hmm. I would have Calvert-Lewin or Vardy. I think Vardy would still be valuable. No, and I think Calvert-Lewin, the problem is it's a big problem for a striker. He's just not clinical in front of goal, but his overall play is real top level. Not top level, but he's like real Premier League quality, whenever I've watched him over the years. So
yeah, it elevates what we've got as an offering.
So if someone was like Calvert-Lewin, yeah, Vardy, yeah. Wilson, there's talks in going to West Ham on like an appearance thing. So if we got on an appearance deal, I could get on board with that. So that's where I'm at with them too. But like I said, I think with our transfer business, it's kind of like we could get something tomorrow where it's like, Burnley's or X is having a medical,
yeah.
Nobody else, or
it's good.
Yeah, we're like, I would still love us to go in for Hamer. There's talks. There's not been loads of talks, and I still like him. And
you've said that before, actually. That's somebody you've identified before.
I still think Hannibal could play that position next to Cullen, but
you need an enforcer.
Is he a little bit too erratic? Do we need someone? But I think we need, Cullen gets a ball, and so it's very. The problem is with them two positions, to be better than what we've got. You're looking at players, in my opinion, that are like 20. Unless you get like a really good loan signing, 20 million plus.
25 plus.
Yeah, possibly. And now that's what I'm saying about Sargent.
Once you get central midfield and forwards, the price goes massively up.
Yeah, like you said, I want to say about Sargent, is he, for the money, is he better than what we've got? So,
that's a good thing. Final ones on you, George, ear to the ground. Is there any of the ridiculous rumours circulating that you have made you interested at all, or are you just trying to ignore the echo chamber on Twitter? Is anybody you think that you would like to see us going for, or anybody that you've seen a rumour of that you're excited by?
No. No, I don't like to. I think we're all the same. Well, I'm not interested in all the sort of rumours, because it's all nonsense. Same. Half of it is nonsense. Half of it's not even just nonsense for nonsense's sake. It's nonsense that's just coming from agents. It's all agent talk who are trying to peddle a move for their player, and by everyone echoing that further out, all you're doing is playing into their hands. All you're doing is making money for the leeches of the world. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. And then every single fan account does content and reposts it, and transfer news and transfer. I'm like, and then your Twitter feed has just got the same thing reposted, and everybody's trying to be in the know, and it's just like, oh, I hate this time of year. It drives me mad. Right. Let's leave it there, because we're going to come back next week, probably about a week to 10 days time, have a look at where Burnley are. And during that time as well, we are going to talk about a rather big piece of news coming out of Burnley Football Club, in that our chairman has bought Espanyol. What does that mean for the Clarets? What does that mean for our chairman? What does it mean for our co-owners? And what opportunities or threats does that offer to our side? Thanks again to everybody who's made this podcast possible, particularly my colleagues George and Rich for joining us this evening. Keep an eye on social media, listeners, for when the next episode is out, and do make sure you please subscribe and turn on notifications both on YouTube and on your podcast provider, so you never miss an episode. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the No Nay Never podcast. Until next time. The No Nay Never podcast is brought to you in association with the talkSPORT Fan Network. Our host and editor is Natalie Bromley, and the show is produced by Matt Moss. Our resident statistician is Dave Roberts, and our FPL expert is Adam Dennett. The Analysis Show team is collectively Tom Whittaker, Rich Steele, George Poole, Charlotte Rigby and Adam Dennett. Our music is provided by George Gaskell, and our newsletter team is headed up by Jamie Smith. If you don't already, you can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting nonaynever.substack.com. Thanks as ever go to our partners talkSPORT. We are proud to be associated with the talkSPORT Fan Network.